Hey guys, welcome back to Maelstrom Gaming Studios. I'm Craig.
And I'm Calvin.
And today we're reviewing the Genestealer Cult Codex. Finally arrived in its glory. Genestealer Cult are in a much better place, we can say that, going into 2022. This will be a sort of good, bad, ugly like we've done in the past with the Grey Knights. So we're not going to cover every single thing. There's plenty of other videos that you can see that in, or just buy the book yourself. This is going to be an overview for non-Genestealer Cult players, just so they can understand, and maybe some people who are looking to get into the faction. Just an overview. We'll cover 5 or 6 things of good, bad, and ugly, although there's not even 5 bad things in this codex. So stay tuned to that. Before we dive in, please like and subscribe to stay up to date on our content, and if you want to support the growth of this channel, do click the little join button. You get access to our private Discord channel and member exclusive videos. Now, with all that out of the way, let's dive into today's video. So in today's video, we are going to go over, like I said, the great or the good stuff. We will go to an explanation on Crossfire because it looks really complicated because it's like 9 paragraphs of explanation in the codex. It's really a lot simpler than that. GW just writes their 9th edition rules in lawyer talk, so there's no rules arguments there. So we'll simplify it down for you guys. We'll go over some of the not so great, some bad things. Really, there's not a lot, especially when you're comparing to what Genestealer Cult were before this codex. They're garbage, absolute garbage compared to 9th edition. Now everything's great. And we'll go, there's a few things that, you know, they're okay, they're complicated, kind of good, kind of bad. So they are what they are, and then we'll wrap it all up with some final thoughts and some opinions at the end of this. So we'll start with the most complicated part before we get in. So this is Crossfire. This is the new army specific rule, which is in 9th edition codexes, every army pretty much has their rule of, you know, what do you get if you stay as a mono faction? You don't soup in with other armies. I think, let's see, Thousand Sons have their not their strands of fate. What are their dice pool that you get?
The Cabal.
The Cabals, yeah. Admech have their canticles and things like that. Grey Knights have their orders too, or their doctrines, psychic doctrines. Anyway, so this is what we get. We get Crossfire, and it's to mimic the guerrilla tactics that Genestealer Cult use, like in the urban area. So it's all about flanking your opponent, which is the first time they've really introduced since 5th edition, back when vehicles had armor facings. This is the first time that flanking has actually been something in 40K. So the way it works is you have to first activate the Crossfire token. We are given tokens in the codex, so you don't have to worry about getting your own or anything like that. Just a simple marker, double-sided, so you can use it as the ambush or the token, or as the conceal token. They've changed the words, which is kind of annoying. It used to be called ambush, now it's called conceal, and ambush is something different. Anyway, so in order to mark an enemy or crossfire an enemy, you have to hit them with 5 shots. It can be all from 1 unit or from multiple units, but you have to hit them with 5 shots of a damage 1 weapon, or hit them with a damage greater than 1. So it could be a D3. Grenade launchers are going to be great to include in your neophytes because you just have to hit them with 1 crack grenade and then they're marked. And then, yeah, that's it. Otherwise, there are some simple rules, stratagem, things like that to automatically crossfire a unit. Lots of things in there, but we won't cover every single one. And what you get with the crossfires, a unit that is crossfired, every unit following the unit that shot to deliver the crossfire token gets +1 to hit. Army wide, everything wide. You could be, you know, on the other side of the board. As long as you can see and shoot that target, you're getting +1 to hit, which is awesome. Now to unlock the exposed position rule, which is the bonus on top of Crossfire, if you can see in this picture, you take a line from Unit A to Unit B, and if you can draw a line through the enemy unit, then their count as exposed. They're flanked, essentially. They have to worry about being on multiple sides. And those 2 units, they don't have to be the ones that crossfire the opponent. You could crossfire them with a 3rd unit, but then have 2 more units make them exposed. If a unit is then deemed exposed, you get +1 to wound. So now all of our little auto guns are wounding Marines a lot easier. Our bigger guns are wounding everything on 2s pretty much. And then if that is the case and you are within 12 inches of the enemy, they ignore cover. So students like, if they're flanked, they shouldn't have any cover even if they're sitting in it. The only in case is, if you're drawing through obscuring terrain, you can't go through obscuring terrain or things like that because, obviously that doesn't make sense that they'd be crossfired through a solid building. But yeah, so that's Crossfire. Very simple. I should also note that units have the Crossfire keyword, and those are the ones that can deliver the Crossfire token. It's pretty much everything in the army except for certain characters, and it's pretty, obviously aberrants don't have Crossfire because they don't have guns or anything like that, but it's pretty much every vehicle and most infantry units and some characters have the Crossfire keyword. The Jackals, of course, they have those too. Those are our bikers. So that's all that out of the way. You want to utilize this rule. You don't have to maximize it, but it basically makes your neophytes worth shooting now that you have these. And it'll be up to the really good players to sort of, figure out how to use the Crossfire as best as possible. Now, we have some of the really good things about this. I'll start off with the first one, and then you can come in on the next one. So the first one are Genestealers. As a Tyranid player, and many of you watching this are Tyranids, these Genestealers are very different than the Genestealers in the Tyranid Codex. They are 14 points a model instead of 13. They have a 4-up invuln save all the time. They have 4 attacks base. Genestealers have the rule where they have 3, and if there's 10 or more in the unit, you get an extra attack. No, all of that's gone. It's just 4 attacks all the time. And they are always AP -2. No more rending on the rending claws because they're technically not called rending claws. They're called like Genestealer talons. So they're always AP -2, which is good. And unlike last codex, they now gain the cult creed. For some reason, they deemed in the last codex that, they were too pure to have the cult creed. They're their own thing. But now you get that. So all those bonuses stack on top of the Genestealers. One other thing I should note in here is that they have been reduced to a maximum of 10 Genestealers per unit, no longer 20. So they're going to limit you. But I mean, if you had a unit of 20 of those things running around, it would be kind of oppressive for a lot of armies to deal with. So as Genestealers, they are very good, and you will see them a lot more than you did in previous editions of Genestealer cults.
So their deep striking is all deep striking is reliable, right? So it's more than just reliable; it's just better. You can get close.
It's better.
It's just the best, I guess, if your goal is to get close. So they have a base 8-inch deep strike. They have 6 inches if they're not going to charge in the following fight phase, or in the charge phase, excuse me. And spending stratagems will get you to up to 3 inches within your enemy, which is pretty good. 3 inches. With like aberrants or something.
Again, with the 3 inches, you cannot shoot or charge. Ooh. You can shoot, but still, if you want to get close with some demolition charges or something, which are 6-inch grenades, can huck those out there. But having an 8-inch base deep strike it makes your charges that much more reliable. And then the other thing, command phase abilities typically happen in the command phase, right? And you can't do that normally if you deep strike. Genestealer Cult have a specific rule that any characters that arrive via deep strike or conceal, ambush, whatever you want to call them, they can use their command abilities, and they can use it on units that also arrive that turn. So now it's useful to put your commanders in deep strike, and you don't have to worry about wasting their abilities. So that's awesome. It really is playing into that whole popping up from the shadows type of deal going into it.
Well, more than just shooting, it really opens the board up for objectives.
Yes.
3 inches of an objective.
Absolutely.
On it is...
Yeah, you can pop in with a whole 20-man block of neophytes and be like, this is my objective now.
Right.
And do all sorts of damage. Yeah, they're going to really want to play the objectives, and they can play the objectives a lot better than a lot of armies now. Another thing that's great that and a lot of people will love is they have streamlined a lot of the profiles. Previously, the Genestealer Cult was like, okay, I have 2 attacks with a talon, 1 attacks with a knife, and then maybe 1 attack with a hammer, all on the same model. And it's like you're rolling 4 different dice for 1 unit. Most of that is all streamlined. All Adelan Jackals just have one shooting profile now, unless you give them, say, the grenade launcher or you give them the demo charges. But all their random bolt pistols or auto pistols or bolt guns, it's all just one Adeline ranged attack. The Acolytes, same thing, no longer is it Rending Claws and Cultist Knife. It is now just called Claw and Knife, and it's 2 attacks, or you get +1 attack with it, and it's AP -2, 1 damage, much easier there. And same thing, I think the last unit is the Aberrants. No longer do they have a pick and a claw or a hammer. Now it is just one weapon. So it's even, now it's not even pick and hammer. It is just mining weapon. So it's good. They're better. They have, it's kind of a hybrid between the two. You don't have the hit penalty like you did with the pick. You have the AP you had with the pick, but you have the damage you had with the hammer. So they're better Thunder Hammers pretty much. And strength ×2, I think. No. Hold on, let me check it. Check it live. Strength ×2 or strength +3. Either way, you're getting them to be strength high enough to do damage, which is all they really care about. Aberrants are strength +3, AP -2, 3 damage. They did change, for the better or for the worse. Our stop sign is not as obscene as it was before. It's now strength +1, AP -1, and 2 damage. However, it has a rare rule that only one other weapon in the game, I think, has, and that is its damage spills over. So if you go up against 1 wound models and you do 4 wounds with it, it's actually 8 wounds that you can deal with it. Pretty cool. I think it's only the Death Guard have a Plague Flail that had that spillover rule. Now we have it. I'll probably still take the stop sign because I love it. See if it's worth it in this case compared to the hammer. But yeah, so that's the streamlined profiles. Much easier for actually playing the Genestealer Cult and not as time consuming. One more, there's a lot more good things, but another good thing, I'll talk on this one quickly, are the Cult Creeds. Previously, Cult Creeds they're bad. There's 1 or 2 of them that you wanted to take all the time. Now, all of them are good. There's maybe 1 that I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever take it. All of them are really good, and you can really actually customize your army to how you want to play them instead of just, playing what one Cult Creed does anything useful. The one I will be trying for the first couple games because I think I like it the most is the Cult of the Four-Armed Emperor. It was my favorite previously. Now it's still good. And you get to reroll all your charges, and infantry units that are more than 12 inches away get light cover all the time. So help increase the durability of things like your neophytes and any back-ranged or backline units. But more specifically, now you have 8-inch rerollable charges from Deep Strike and ways to make those a little bit better too. So again, very good for your Cult Creed. There are some other things. Let's see, I'll have you touch on the Broodmind Discipline. I'll go over Proficient Plannings. These are our chapter upgrades, so that's what I call them generic terms. Grey Knights, they have their 2 tables of, the paid points upgrades you can just put on random units. Yeah, so every army, 9th edition is getting them. Genestealer Cult are getting those as well. Ours they're pretty good. You can use as many as you want. Unlike Tyranids, we are limited to how many we can use. You can use as many as you want. They're all 10 to 20 points. You can put them on any model, any unit or anything. They cannot stack. That would be crazy. And here's just a few examples. 3 of my favorite. I'll go through the first one. Exacting Planner, which is the Primus. He can give his reroll to wound rolls to 2 units. It's like kind of how, it's almost like the Lieutenant, but you have to declare a unit instead of an aura. So he can give reroll 1s to wound to 2 units, and they don't have to be core in this case. It can be any unit. So I could give it to the Ridge Runners, you can give it to the Abominant or the Aberrants or characters himself, anything like that. For 15 points, that one's pretty good. Next one, for the Biophagist, you can give 1 upgrade. So he's still got his little thing where he modifies a unit, gives him you roll a D3 table, and he gets 1 of those upgrades. So now he can still do that, but with this one, you get to pick 1 upgrade and give that to a unit pre-game. You get to choose in everything. And the ones in there are pretty good. 5-up, Feel No Pain to the whole unit is one of them. 6s to hit, explode, so you gain an extra one. Or you can get extra AP on wound rolls of 6, I believe. Yeah, so those ones are good, but now he can automatically give somebody one before the game, and he can continue to inject other units throughout the game as well. And if you want to touch on the last one, which is also pretty good.
A trap sprung. 3d6. So you roll 3d6 for your charge. You take the top 2 the first turn you arrive from ambush or concealment or whatever they're calling it.
Wherever you're arriving, or even if it's strategic reserve, yeah.
Pretty sweet. So set up 8 inches and take your top 2.
Top 2, and if you're playing Cult of the Four-Armed Emperor, top 2 re-rolling the whole thing. Or if you just want to use a command point, you re-roll all 3d6. It's about as consistent.
Either way, you're probably getting your Genestealers into wherever you want.
Yeah, it's about as consistent of a charge out of Deep Strike as you can have in 40k now. The Broodmind Discipline is also, it's changed a little bit, but still very good. Our powers are not as easy to get off, but they're still very powerful, and there's a lot of relics and strats and stuff to make them more reliable. Mass Hypnosis is one of my favorite. It is -1 attack to an enemy unit. So if they have 2 attacks base, they only have 1 attack base. And they have to fight last. So...
regardless of charging?
Regardless of charging. Well, so if you... Calvin is learning 40k more. So if they charge and they have fight last, they counteract each other. So it's an offsetting sort of thing. So it still would... If it would be on your turn, which means if that was the only unit that charged, I would get to fight first. And then they would. But yeah, so it's a good power to have. Warp Charge 7 is, I don't say, even though 7 is average, I don't like to bank on average. I think 5s and 6s I would say reliable. 7s are getting plus that. Might from Beyond is also good. Not as good as it used to be. It used to be +1 strength and attack to a whole unit. Now it is only +1 attack because most of our army gained a strength or gained an attack.
For Warp Charge 6 though, +1 attack isn't bad.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll see those on your Acolytes or on your Aberrants because your Aberrants only have 2 attacks. So getting up to 3 will be helpful.
Shooting or melee?
Just melee.
Okay.
That would be cool if you could get an extra shot out, but yeah, it's just +1 in shooting. And then this book, like all 9th edition, have an absurd amount of stratagems. But I went through and I found 5 of them that I think are going to be fun. Maybe not used all the time, but 5 good ones. If you want to go off with the first one.
So for 1 command point, Raking Fire, Ridge Runners reroll their hits if they're targeting a Crossfire and exposed unit.
Yeah, so that's good, plus rerolling hits. Next one is Massed Firearms, a Crossfire unit with 6+ models, so probably a big block of Neophytes. Get 6s to hit auto wound. So that makes... It is unmodified 6s. We are 9th edition. We're not like Tyranids anymore. But unmodified 6s to hit auto wound, which will make those auto guns actually scary against knights, potentially. Maybe. Yeah. I'll go next one.
For another command point, you can do Gestalt Consciousness. Can cast any blessing regardless of range. So you can get any unit with your Psyker regardless of where they are.
Yeah.
Or as long as it's a blessing, of course.
As long as it's a blessing. I believe... No, that's the relic. Yeah, a blessing regardless of... So that Might from Beyond, you can put it onto a unit that just arrived from reserve on the other side of the table.
You don't have to risk your Psyker with your concealment unit like you used to.
Yes, that's true. You do not have to risk your Magus because your Magus is still basically a guardsman in defense with maybe a 5-up invuln save. So, yeah, he's not going to last very long if he has to fight. Covering Fire for 1 CP, a Crossfire unit, so one you've marked crossfired, cannot fire Overwatch or heroically intervene, which is pretty cool because if there's just a character holding an objective, you could move and stay outside of an inch of them, take the objective from them, and they can't do anything about it. It's just an easy steal there. Not firing Overwatch is also important because unlike most armies, Genestealer Cult melts under Overwatch, and every model typically when you're charging is very important. So if someone's got 2 heavy flamers coming your way, you just use 1 CP and ignore it. And the last one you want to...
Last one we've got is for a command point. You can do Prime Explosive, which is auto 6 shots with your grenade weapon, or cash with demo charges, which is always nice. Consistency is...
Consistent, especially because the demo charges are like melt-the-bombs. They're only flat 2 damage, but still 6 of them. 6 of them going off is pretty good. So those are some of the good things. Again, most of this codex is great, but that is covering a lot of the good things. There are 2 complicated things that I'll say are complicated. The first one is Brood Brothers. I want to put this in the bad, but it's not horrible. They've removed Brood Brothers from the codex. So in order to take Brood Brothers, you needed an Astra Militarum or Imperial Guard codex in addition to this one, which is annoying. That also means if you want to include Brood Brothers, you cannot include them as part of your current detachment. Previously, I'd like to take a brigade, and my heavy support slot was filled up with 3 heavy weapons teams from the Brood Brothers because I could do that. Now, if I want to fill that out, I cannot use those to fill out my heavy support slots or fast attack or whatever the case is. So it's a separate detachment, which means you have to pay 2 CP for at least a patrol. The good things, though, is that all of those units do gain +2 to their leadership. So they're now all base lead 8 or 9, depending on the unit, which is good. And they do gain the Unquestioning Loyalty, which is our essentially army-wide lookout, sir rule we still keep. It's a little different, but on a 4+, after you fail to save a 4+, your neophyte or your guardsman can hop in front and take the wound, which, it's good for guardsmen. You can keep, unlike other armies, if your Brood Brothers detachment remains less than 25%, so it has to be 249 points, 499 points at a 2,000 point game, you can maintain your Crossfire rule. The Brood Brothers don't get anything, they don't have Crossfire, they can't count as exposed or anything like that, but you don't lose your army special rule for bringing them in. And there are some key units you'll still want to bring from the guard, things like Manticores or Hydras. Not Hydras, those are garbage. Manticores, Basilisks, Lehman Russes, stuff the Genestealer Cult still are lacking from that long-range anti-tank fire. For 2 CP, it might be worth it. It's just annoying that you have to pay the extra detachment. You can't continue in your own detachment. And for anyone who's new to the game, you need 2 codexes to do it, which is unfortunate. Because otherwise, I understand why, because then it would have had to update the Imperial Guard Codex at the same time and then keep those 2 up to date all the time, which is annoying, but it's unfortunate they lost it. And now the other one is the Aberrants and the Abominant. I'm not sold on these. As much as I was saying that I think they're getting better, I'm not sold on them being totally good yet. We'll see. They're still 30 points a model. They did maintain their -1 damage. They have 3 wounds now and are toughness 5. So they're very durable. They have a 5-up armor save. So
they
lost their Feel No Pain. You now have to either pay points or use your biophages to potentially get Feel No Pain onto them.
Can you use any stratagems to make your biophages more consistent in what?
You can take their Familiar, which lets you re-roll the D3, but still a re-roll is not consistent, unfortunately. So they're cool. If you do, I would take the biophages, pay the 15 points so he can automatically give them Feel No Pain. Then you're doing it, but that is a 55 point tax on top of your already expensive Aberrant squad in order to make them truly tanky. Because otherwise, yes, you need damage 4 weapons to go through them, to one-shot them, but if you have a damage 4 weapon, you're probably have the AP and have everything you need to just chunk these things apart pretty quick. Like I said, they are only 2 attacks apiece, so you have to be careful you don't get swamped by anything, because if your opponent's smart and they have hordes, just throw them the Aberrants against those, or they'll throw them against the Aberrants, and they'll be locked up there forever with just 2 attacks.
Unless you got a stop sign.
Unless you got a stop sign, which just might be a reason to include a stop sign. And it goes along with the whole fact Genestealer Cult still play, I mean, your shooty stuff is on the table, maybe popping up, but your charges are almost always deep strike charges.
Right.
So if you're having a bad day with your dice rolls, then you're going to have a bad day playing Genestealer Cult because your army's going to be caught in the open, and if these guys are caught in the open, they will die fairly quick. So, and then the Abominant, some good things about the Abominant is that his hammer is still powerful. It is D3 plus 3 damage for his attacks. He does get full rerolls to the Abominants, or Aberrants, so many words. But he's 100 points, and he only has 2 attacks, or 3 attacks.
This is their HQ.
He's now an elite slot. He used to be an HQ, but yeah, he's like their prime. Yeah, so the Abominant and the Aberrants, they're okay. I'm still gonna use them because I have 12 of them and 2 Abominants, and I do love them, but I don't know in the competitive list if you will see them unless they are teching into them to give them consistent charges, giving them the feel no pain and everything right away from the get-go. So we'll see how that goes in. Finally, we'll go over the only bad thing I can find in this codex, at least through the first couple glance-throughs and reads of it, is that their secondaries are not good. Typically, every codex gets 4 secondaries. One of them is really fluffy. One of them is kind of fluffy, and it's kind of doable. One of them is just bad, and the other one is very doable, a lot of points. Think of like Oath of the Moment from the Space Marines, the Psychic Ritual one, or Purify from the Grey Knights. That one's an auto 15. Oath could easily be an auto 15. AdMech have one of them. I won't say it's an auto 15, but it's a pretty easy 10-ish points, 10, 12 points. There's not much here with the Genestealer Cult. The best one, you could get maybe 10 points on it, but beyond that, it's an easy 10 points, and beyond 10 points, it's just not really practical. There are 4 of them, just like everybody else, but I'm gonna find a hard time wanting to take these over the book secondaries. At least we'll see. Chapter Approved 2022 hasn't come out yet. Supposed to come out, in January, but obviously that's being delayed with everything else. We'll see if that, but I have a funny feeling. Oh, they only have 3. Sorry, they only have 3. They don't have 4. I have a funny feeling that chapter approved secondaries are going to be a lot easier for the Genestealer Cult to do than these ones. One of them is fun, but your opponent can just abuse you on it. Is that you get 2 objective markers, not actual game objective markers, but objective markers you can make your own, make them little bombs, make them whatever you want, but you have to do an action on those objective markers, and whatever turn you do an action on those objective markers, you get a certain amount of points. So if you do an action on turn 2, you get 9 points for it, and there's 2 of them, so you could say, 18 points, easy. Your opponent gets to pick where they place the objective markers. It can be anywhere on the table as long as it's 6 inches away from a table edge. So he could basically say, all right, I'm going to castle right here. Here are the 2 objective markers in my castle. Come at me. It's like, what are you going to do against that? It's not going to be easy. At best, if you do them in turn 5, you get 6 points for it. Maybe you do 1 in turn 4 and 1 in turn 5. That's 8 points. I don't think, maybe against armies like Custodes or very elite armies, it could be decent, but against most people, they're just going to put those on their castles and let you do their thing. So, I don't know, the other ones I'm not even going to read through because they're not... Okay, I'll read through Brood Swarm because that one's kind of fun, but at the same time, so you have to, it's kind of like an engage. You get a point for having more models in your deployment zone than your enemy. You get a point for having more models in the center, like the no man's land, than your enemy. And you get 1 point for having more models in your opponent's deployment zone than your enemy. And if you do all 3 of those in one turn, you get a bonus point, so 4 points per turn. Which you could do a couple of those, each turn, and maybe in the late game you could pull it off. But basically forcing you to put units in your opponent's deployment zone, which on some turns you're going to want to, but not every single turn.
Spread yourself that thin.
I think it'll spread a lot of your armies thin if you go for it. Like I said, it could be an easy 8 points, but beyond that, you're going to really struggle to get anything more than that out of it. So that's the secondaries. I'm not a fan of them. Unfortunately, they're just not quite what I was hoping they'd be. But yeah, so we'll go over some final conclusions. I think this codex has the highest ceiling and the lowest floor of any 9th edition codex by a long shot. Someone who really knows the game of 40k and really learns this codex is going to be able to master how to turn neophytes into marine killing menaces and make your aberrants just wipe the floor, and your acolytes, everything. But someone who doesn't know what they're going to do, probably like me going into this first game, because there's a lot of rules in here, you're gonna get wiped off the floor so easy. You're basically an army of guardsmen. You're an army of deep striking guardsmen, which sounds kind of fun, but at the same time, you're gonna get blown away very easy. There are actually, and I don't know this about the rest of the codexes, there are more pages of rules in this codex than there are of fluff. It is 55 pages of rules and 50 pages of fluff. And that includes like the title page as page 1 and the table of contents as page 2. Otherwise, it's 55 solid pages of rules that you have to learn in order to master this codex. They did do one thing, which I haven't seen before. There is actually a reference at the very back to reference all of these special rules that are in the codex. It's really nice. It tells you a simple summary, and if you want more in depth, it tells you the page number. Hopefully they keep doing that, but there's just so many rules that you're going to need that reference page all the time. Things like exposed, gene sect, loyalty to the cult, summon the cult, underground, crossfire, conceal, all of these things that are just as rules. And when you're going through data sheets, you're like, oh, they have crossfire. What is that? You can go here, get the basics, and then move, and if you need a more in-depth definition. So that's nice. I'm glad they did that because you will need that. I'm happy they gave us another 9-inch measuring tool, and they gave us all of our tokens, so you don't have to deal with those. But man, there's just a lot to learn in this codex, which is why I say if you're new to 40k, unless you're feeling bold, I would not start with this army. I would definitely choose something like Space Marines or Tyranids. Thousand Suns and Death Guard are pretty beginner friendly. Death Guard more than Thousand Suns I think are pretty beginner friendly, but the amount of rules that this thing has is wicked. That's it. They're still glass cannons, but they're going to be fun. And because of the cult creeds, I think you can now finally play them as whatever you want. You could be solely an objective-based army. You could be solely a combat army. You could be solely a shooty army. And you can mix and match and do all of that. It's not just Genestealer Cult forced to play in one narrow avenue. So you have flexibility with how you play. Not a ton of flexibility in units, obviously, being the Genestealer Cult. But yeah, that's it. You have any other things you want to say in your first video here?
No, I don't think so. I think it went well. I think they're going to be an interesting army for sure, and it's going to take some time to figure out all their combinations. But I have faith you and the rest of the hive mind will figure it out. And
we'll figure it out. I'll do in the future. I think one thing I haven't been able to find out in this codex, I think we can, but if we can still soup with Tyranids without any penalties. I think if we soup with Tyranids, we lose Crossfire. But other than that, because we still have the Tyranids keyword on almost all of our models, if not all of them, we can still do that. So maybe I'll do some videos on if it's worth including Genestealer Cult into your Tyranids. I think actually with the changes to chapter proved 2022, a unit or a detachment of Genestealer Cult might be a way to take Tyranids, specifically Crusher Stampede, up a notch even more.
Grab those objectives while your monsters
exactly.
are
Tyranids don't have a lot of units, especially the Crusher Stampede, to take to do actions. All of the things, now that engaging all fronts and retrieving data and all of those stuff now require units of more than 3 or 5 models, depending on what it is. Tyranids don't have that. It's either, I mean, we have warriors.
You don't want to be using.
You don't want to use warriors all the
objectives.
Yeah, exactly. We can't use Gaunts if we're using Crusher Stampede. You're not allowed to use Gaunts. Can't use our Genestealers, any of our 1-wound models, and your monsters can't do actions. So you're very limited to basically warriors and raveners. But I think using acolytes to pop up everywhere, do your actions for you, might be a very good change. So we'll see. We'll touch on that. If you guys are new and you're here just for the Genestealer Cult, let us know what you want us to cover in depth in the future. I'm thinking maybe a rundown of all of the, not hive fleets, but the cult creeds would be fun because they are all really good. And the custom cult creeds, this will be part of a little tag of a ramble at the end. Don't worry, the custom cult creeds are really cool. I really like what they did with them. So sneak peek, they're assigned point values, and you are given 4 points to make a custom creed. So you can take the 4.1, you could take a 3 and a 1.1, you could take 4 1.1s, or 2 of these, 1 of those, anything.
Right.
It's pretty cool. It's not as restricted, especially not as restricted as the AdMech custom Forge Worlds. They're very, very like you take this and this, or this, or this, and this, and this, but you can make all sorts of things with this army. So maybe we'll play around with it sometime. But yeah, let us know in the comments what you want to see out of the Genestealer Cult Codex. Definitely be covering it. Stay tuned next Monday, a week from today, when you're seeing this, that there should be a battle report. It'll be the Genestealer Cult versus what, I don't know. Connor is bringing either some Grey Knights or some Necrons against us, so we'll see. I think Grey Knights would be really fun to see how these guys stack up against a very powerful army. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. We'll cut it off there, leave the rambling for another video, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.